long. I'll be very brief. One, just wanted to take a moment to thank Chairman Reeves and Representative Maynard for this bill. It is a great sign to see that we're taking this population of people in our state very seriously. The only recommendation we have is on the point that Representative Miller raised about the use of records. And so we would just simply recommend that we strike that line to give this the teeth that it needs to really have the impact on that community. So that would be line 68 and 69 about using judicial or administrative proceedings or any other body, board, or employer authority from accessing those individuals' criminal history records. So that would be our only recommendation, but otherwise we, again, appreciate this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Sorry, I was looking at that line again, and I think we can discuss that more in detail later. Next is Todd Belcourt. And I understand you have come here from out of town. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank
If
you
you
for
can
the
announce
opportunity.
yourself and who you're with.
Absolutely. Thank you for this opportunity, Chairwoman Hong. My name is Todd Belcourt. To give a little more introduction on myself, I'm son of a single mother who became a minister. I'm a brother of a former drug addict. I'm a brother of multiple law enforcement officers. And I know at firsthand what it's like to be held at gunpoint, to be arrested, to couch surf, to be poor. All the things that are really implicated directly in this legislation are things that I've lived and I know. And that's why I started my nonprofit Social Change, to provide free assistance to people who are doing everything they can to overcome that grind, to break those curses, and be in a position to take care of themselves and their families. And in doing that, I've seen the pain that is on people's faces and the struggle and the frustration, and what it feels like for someone to tell me how they can't get their child anything for their birthday, what it feels like to say they can't get something for Christmas or keep food on their table, and how much pain that causes not just them, but their children and their community, their family. So what do we do then to make sure that people who are doing everything we ask of them as a society, people who have turned their lives around, pay their debts to society, but take care of their families, who go above and beyond to be involved in the community or involved in their churches or whatever, so they can be seen for who they are now? And this certificate is not new to the nation. It is new to Georgia, and it's something I've had the privilege of helping people pursue in other states. And I've seen it help people go from being homeless, from selling soap in the street, to selling real estate. People who haven't been able to find a job for 5 years to start businesses in security companies. For people who are just feeling like there's no way I'm going to be able to find a place. I mean, at least on my mother's couch for the next 30 years, to have their own apartment and to figure out the amazing power that yields. And to Representative Miller's question about, does this have an impact? Yes, those stories are important, but imagine what it feels like as someone who's dealt with all this discrimination, the shame, the stigma, to do everything that's been asked of you and still be told no everywhere you go. But imagine also how much power that means to go before a judge and have a judge that's told you nothing but negative things your whole life to say, you've done an amazing job. You have turned your life around. So much so, I'm willing to put an order in that says you are fully rehabilitated and law-abiding. That in itself is such a powerful, overwhelming moment. And to be able to present that affirmatively to employers, to occupational agents, saying, I'm different. I'm not what that says. I got a letter of recommendation from a presiding judge. And not only do I have this to speak to who I am, I'll show you the petition, talk about my journey, but most important, this gives you protection. As an employer, the reason why a lot of employers are most excited about this around the nation, because this makes certificate holders more safe to hire than people who don't have a record at all. Because it gives them negligent hiring protection when they reach out and decide to make the decision to hire people who are obviously qualified applicants. The reason why that provision is there is like, well, why do people still get to see the record? Because people who are seeking second chances aren't trying to hide things. They're just trying to say, this is who I am, this is who I was, this is who I am. And it's important that people's records restrictions, I'm a sealing proponent. I've written 20 pieces of legislation regarding it. But what I know is when something comes out from a record they think to be sealed, and employers find out later that there's something that wasn't originally reported, but the person didn't think to disclose it, but it's supposed to be restricted, the way in which that perception changes. So if people can present themselves not only honestly, but as a real asset to an individual, not just because they're qualified, because we don't want people to hire unqualified folks. That's why we don't take away discretion from employers or occupational license agencies, but also because once you find they're qualified, not only they're qualified, they're an asset because they have something that protects me as an employer. So not only am I getting a rock star who's qualified, but someone who's going to be a real asset. So those are some of the things that stand out that I want to highlight in response to questions. but also make myself available for questions if people have any regarding the process or the impact this has on lives, families, and communities.
Thank you. And you do have one question from Representative Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Balfour. Did I pronounce that right?
Belcour.
Belcour. I'm
It's
so
all right.
sorry.
I've had clients for
It's been
7
a
years to
long
call me
day.
Belfour, and I respond every time. It's not a problem.
Thank you. Thank you for coming to Georgia. Thank you for your work, and thank you for your participation in this bill. I do have a couple questions for you. I noticed that this is a substitute bill, and the original bill had a very limited disqualifying sort of definition. I think it was only folks who had been convicted of sex offenses. And now this substitute bill has broadened the number of people who would not be eligible to get the certificate of good standing. And so I guess my question for you is, and I agree with everything you said, and we have a similar background, why would we keep a person who had been previously convicted of, let's say, selling marijuana, who now wants the ability to tell the world that they are a law-abiding citizen and that they want a chance to go to work and pay taxes? Why would we keep them from this process? So in other words, can you talk to me about how the decision has been made to exclude certain classes of folks who have prior convictions?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few things embedded in that. They're all very important. The first is there is no desire on my behalf to, or even the people part of this legislation, to exclude people from opportunities. But there's no question that this is a bill that's extremely important, but also extremely new. So while it's important to make sure everyone has an opportunity, there's so many significant concerns from other communities and stakeholders that if it's necessary to start smaller, to make sure of the 4 million we can help 300,000 now, I'd rather do that now than wait 3 years for the perfect bill to come through. So what we've done in other states is expand legislation. It used to be for one conviction only in Illinois, for example, and then 3, and then that kind of thing. Yes, there's people. That means there's people still be languishing, being kind of quote unquote left behind in pain. But if we can't help the people right now that we can help right now, and wait in hopes, and this is something I've been pushing for 3 years in Georgia, for what it's worth. So to even get to this point, it's like, oh, Jesus is real, you know. So let me start there as well. But I think it's important that we don't move forward without acknowledging the concerns of other stakeholders in the law enforcement community and others, so they can see this working and start to visualize what it would look like to open this up to people who have incredible stories, who have Saul DePaul stories, you know, who used to be maybe one of the greatest terrorizers in communities, have turned our lives around, the greatest evangelists of peace and love, and have, you know, gotten PhDs and all these things. None of these people can be considered right now, but that's just right now. So we want to make sure that the people that we can have a consideration for have an opportunity to get that, and then it'll make the case more strongly, more potently for the remainder of the population over time. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you. All right, next is Jacqueline Harn.
Hello, everyone. And Madam Chairman, for brevity's sake, we are also supporting another bill that will be going through this committee, HB 909, and so I've looped in a comment of 2 of that in this testimony as well.
We can just keep it at 926 since we haven't
Okay.
discussed 909, if
Perfect.
that's okay with you.
That's
Thank you.
totally fine. Well, thank you guys for the opportunity to speak. I've provided written testimony on this, so I'll be brief. But at Americans for Prosperity, we work to reduce unnecessary government barriers that limit people from reaching their full potential and realizing their American dream. So we support HB 926 because these policies will advance this vision. This bill will take a smart approach on crime that appropriately balances public safety with the goals of removing barriers for opportunity for those with criminal records and ensuring equal justice for all. So, Dan, thank you. And I just mentioned I provided written testimony for this as well that includes some statistics about the issue. So, thank you.
Great, thank you. Robert Smith. You guys are making it easy for me not to cut people off. Doing very good, thank you.
I feel like I just got set up.
I know. I said that on, but I'm just kidding.
I'm Robert Smith. I'm with the Prosecuting Attorneys Council of Georgia. A couple of things I want to raise to you and just point out about this bill. First off, as been discussed, this body has already enacted several pieces of criminal justice reform. Specifically, I'm going to point you to 35337J, which allows for misdemeanor convictions to be sealed. And when something is sealed, that means it's not available for purposes of employment checks, housing checks. So there's already a mechanism in place that you already have at your disposal that already reaches these people that are coming forth and talking about this relief. I'm not saying that we're speaking one way or the other about the certificate. I'm just making sure this body understands you have already enacted legislation that provides some of these goals. As to the process and procedure, if I can point you to, in the substitute, line 47, and I'm going to read, such court shall maintain jurisdiction. And when we're talking about such court, we're talking about the court that had the conviction. Such court shall maintain jurisdiction over the case for this limited purpose and duration. Such petition shall be served on the prosecuting